Girl, what happened? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Casey. This is Casey Undercovers, and welcome if you're new. Welcome back if you've been here before. Before we get started, if you could hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to come back for more bookish content, I'd really appreciate it. Today, we are going over my very unimpressive July wrap-up and my August TBR. In July, I've got no excuses. I wasn't really doing anything, and I only read 3 books. But that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes we take more time to savor what we're reading, right? And I really feel that's kind of what happened, especially with the first book that I read in July. So let's just jump into it. The first book that I read in July was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Perfect for the Herkid Reading Challenge if you're participating for a cover with 7 or more colors or a rainbow cover. This would be a very good one for that prompt, and I personally did use it for that. So the prompts that I read Demon Copperhead for were: for my library card game, this was a choice for a literary fiction book with insects, butterflies, or spiders on the cover, and it does have spiders and butterflies. There's some butterflies right there. There's a spider right there as well. So it does count for that one. I also used Demon Copperhead as my white cover for the quest game. And as I mentioned for Herkid, I used it as a rainbow cover and also published in 2022 for published in the last 10 years. And this book was so good. I tried so hard to nitpick and not give it 5 stars, but I just couldn't do it. It is a 5-star book through and through. And I did really enjoy immersive reading with this. I read it both physically and listening to it on audiobook. The narrator does a really good job with the accent and really bringing this character to life, and it made it feel more alive for me. Now, just to give you a little synopsis, Demon Copperhead is the title character whose real name is Damon, but let's just go ahead and call him Demon. And this is a modern reimagining of Charles Dickens' David Copperfield, but with an American Appalachian twist. And this is really a character-driven coming-of-age story about Demon who loses his mother when he was young. He's about 10 years old when she passes. She had remarried an abusive, psychotic asshole who was torturous to Demon. He gets thrown into the American foster care system, grows up within it, gets bounced from family to family. Now, this is a really good book for just getting to know someone over a period of time. We follow Demon from birth to age 18, and this is really a good book to take your time with. I really did kind of savor and enjoy growing up with Demon along the way. The writing in this book was so amazing. This book takes place in Southwest Virginia for the most part, and my mom has family from that area. I'm very familiar with that area. You can see the mountains, you can see the fog, you can smell the home cooking, feel the holler. You can really get immersed in this environment. It was very good. But do be warned going into this book that he had a rough go of it in life. He personifies kind of the Americana pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but really 10-year-olds shouldn't be having to do that, if you know what I mean. And that talking point normally is one I find toxic and used against people who are in poor situations. But Demon really does pull himself up by his bootstraps from a very young age, and here is endearing rather than critical. I would truly, highly, very much recommend this book to anyone and everyone. It is so phenomenal. I think a lot of us can relate to Demon, especially Americans who have had people that they've lost through the opioid crisis. We do find Demon at one point in this book becoming an addict and getting sucked in to the opioid crisis of the early 2000s. For anybody who's gone through the foster care system or knows someone who has, this really will hit home for you, and it was just a very, very good read. Would definitely recommend this one. From a 5-star read to a book I really didn't enjoy, and that is I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. It is a classic sci-fi, a staple in sci-fi, but somehow I just didn't think this book was very good. Or for me, maybe. The prompts that I read I, Robot for were for mostly the Buzzwordathon and cover challenge. The buzzword was punctuation. I, Robot is this book title, and for the cover it needed to have technology, and of course a robot very much fits that. I also read this book as part of my quest prompts for a bookish challenge. My personal bookish challenge that I used for the quest is the Buzzwordathon. And for the prompts that I used for Herkid for this one, it was by the hundreds. This book is just over 200 pages and fills in that prompt for me. And also the challenge yourself and the bookish challenge that I'm participating in is, of course, Buzzwordathon. I, Robot is a collection of 9 interconnected short stories that were individually published back in the 1950s, but later collected into one work. And in the not too distant future, robots are commonplace. In iRobot, we see these robots evolve from nonverbal nursemaids to running the world. And all of these stories are told to us by retiring robopsychologist Susan Calvin. Throughout this book, we see that the 3 laws of robotics tend to conflict with one another, causing complications and malfunctions within the robots. And that later brings our team of scientists in to try to solve this conflict. What iRobot does exceptionally well is build this kind of vulnerability of humanity and how we can become obsolete rather quickly given the right technology. And each story kind of brings home more and more that we are the inferior beings and robots are superior. I didn't really care for any of the characters in these stories. They were really mean to the robots, like really talked down to them, bullied them, threw them away, got rid of them. You just felt bad for the big Terminators. I only rated iRobot 2.5 stars. I'm kind of debating on if I want to unhaul it or not because I didn't enjoy it. I did like 2 stories out of the book, being the first one, Robbie, and another one called Escape, but I don't know if that's enough for me to keep it. I do tend to keep classics even if I don't like them, but I don't know. Now, even though I didn't really enjoy this book, I would recommend it to sci-fi enthusiasts and robot fanatics. This book does kind of lean into a bit of hard sci-fi for those of you who enjoy that. The technical jargon in this book at times went over my head, but if you're into hard sci-fi, this might not be a stranger to you. The third and final book that I read in July was The Devil in the White City by Erik Larson, and technically I finished this book in early August, but we're going to count it for July since my numbers that month were so poor. Now, the prompts that I read The Devil in the White City for was from my library card game, a nonfiction with a deed title. I originally had chosen something else, but switched to this book. For the quest, I used it for a Battlefield board inspired, like we had to read a book inspired by the Battlefield section of the board, which is black and gray, as is this book. And for Herkit, I used this as one of my 5 nonfiction reads, as well as a prompt from the Steal a TBR game challenge, which I haven't posted my video on yet, but I will. And the most striking thing about this book is that you could get rid of a body, you could give somebody a deceased human, they would turn it into a skeleton and sell it and had no questions. What time is this? I'm getting ahead of myself. The Devil in the White City takes place in the late 1890s, where they are constructing the Chicago World Fair, and also lurking on the periphery is notorious serial killer H.H. Holmes. Now, I discovered along in my reading journey that true crime is really not for me, but I do like a good historical novel. And in this book, we have a combination of architecture and chaos surrounding the World Fair, as well as the true crime surrounding H.H. Holmes, and together they work really well. I think separated, I wouldn't have appreciated them as much, and maybe would have DNF'd each book. The way that they handle H.H. Holmes in this book is more delicate than most true crime books that I've tried. The stories aren't overly graphic. Don't get me wrong, they get pretty dark, but they aren't overly graphic and detailed. And the Chicago World's Fair is Murphy's Law if I ever have seen one. Like, everything possible went wrong for this fair. They were doomed to fail. When the Chicago World Fair did open in 1983, it is a glorious moment for them. It is a true triumph for all of the effort that went into it, and you really do get a sense of uplifting in this dark book. Now, this book goes back and forth in chapters between the Chicago World Fair and the doings of H.H. Holmes, and at times I felt a relief that I was getting back to the World Fair, and at other times I felt confused and why were these 2 stories told together. So I really am not sure how I felt about the overall tonal shift. And I do think there was a bit of a lack of balance here, as most of the book is about the Chicago World Fair with bits of H.H. Holmes peppered in. And I rated The Devil in the White City 3.5 stars. It was good. It was good. I liked it. I would recommend it to people who want to learn more about Chicago in general at this time. Now, if you're looking for a book specifically about H.H. Holmes, I'm sure there are better out there. If you just want to know about Chicago and the World Fair and kind of have a story about that time in that city, this is a good one, or just a casual read. And I know Martin Scorsese is going to be making an adaptation of this book starring Leonardo DiCaprio as H.H. Holmes, which is a very weird choice for me. Leonardo DiCaprio is 50. H.H. Holmes was in his late 20s during this time period, so how that's going to work, I'm not sure. There is really something to be said about Leonardo DiCaprio preying on young girls in this movie, though. I can't ignore it. So obviously the best book that I read in July was Demon Copperhead. The worst, in my opinion, was I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. It just really wasn't for me. Now let's move on to what I'll be reading in August. In August, I have 4 books planned and 1 to be determined. Maybe you can help me out with that. The first book I'm reading in August, and I'm already halfway through, is Christine by Stephen King. For my library card game, this will be a mystery that was published between 1970 and 1990. For the quest game, I'll be using this as my bookish challenge. My bookish challenge, of course, is the Buzzwordathon and Coverathon challenge. And for the Buzzwordathon, our cover prompt is Transportation Christine, a 1958 Plymouth Fury, is right there on the front. And so for her kid, I'll be using this as a challenge yourself. My challenge yourself is the Buzzwordathon. And I think for my other prompt, I'll be doing a spooky creature, which is paranormal or ghost. I do believe that's what Christine is, though I'm not really at that point in the book yet. And if you don't know, I can tell you just a little bit about Christine since I'm halfway through. It's about a young man named Arnie Cunningham who is intimately obsessed with a car he buys from a creepy, acidic old man whom I hate. And he becomes ridiculously obsessed with restoring Christine, and through restoring Christine, he himself goes through some changes physically and through his behaviors. He starts dating a hot new girl who's transferred in. Lots of weird things are going on. His behavior is weird. His family's up in arms. His best friend is like, dude, what are you doing? It's pretty interesting, but if a slow burn book needed a poster child, bro, this is it. But I am enjoying it so far. The second book I'm reading in August, I've already started this one as well, and that is The United States of Cryptid by J.W. Ocker. This is kind of a reference book to mythology and folklore within America. Kind of the old wives' tales, things like the Mothman and Champ, which is kind of like the American Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, those kind of things are being discovered and discussed in this book on a very kind of like textbook way. It's not a novel by any means. This is more nonfiction, but it is a lot of fun. For my library card game, the prompt for this book was folklore with a U title. For the quest game, I am using this book for a family heritage book, which would have been perfect for Demon Copperhead last month, but alas, I'm going with just the United States because my family is many generations American to the point where everybody argues where we're actually from and no one knows. And for her kid, this book will be filling the prompt of spooky creatures being the other category, which is kind of about cryptids. And also for nonfiction being mythology and folklore, whatever kind of works for that. But it is nonfiction. This book does have some like really cool, fun illustrations. It does talk about the authors visiting these small towns and these tourist spots, buying souvenirs, and kind of learning the lore behind these mythological creatures. And it's kind of interesting. I've been reading like 1 or 2 stories at a time, like my monster of the day, and I'm also rewatching Supernatural right now, so could anything be more perfect? I'm kind of loving this. The third book I'll be reading in August is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. It was on my TBR last month, but I did not get to it. But alas, as fate would have it, it fits this month anyway. My prompts for this from the quest game is a magical realism prompt. For my library card game, it is also a magical realism prompt that takes place either underwater or at sea. And for her kid, this is going to be part of my subgenre challenge, my subgenre of fantasy. This is magical realism, which is a subgenre of fantasy. And also I'll be using this book for the queer alphabet. The main character in this book is gay. From what I understand, I haven't read it yet, but from what I understand, our main character finds a book that he thinks is just a regular fantasy book, but as he continues reading, he notices that it is straight out of his childhood. He starts looking into this book, which eventually leads him to a magical underworld. This sounds right up my alley. I loved The Night Circus, so I'm really hoping I'll love this too. I've heard that people love either or, but not both. Maybe I'll be the exception. The fourth book that I'll be reading in August is The Salt That Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. This is a very short novella that's something of a dark reimagining of The Little Mermaid. Now my prompt for this one so far is social scroll for the quest game. One of our prompts, you had to go through social media, so open up whatever, Bookstagram, Booktube, Goodreads, something, and scroll until you find a book on your TBR. So I will put it up here that little video so that you can see I'm not a cheater. Although I am super grateful to get a book that's only 100 pages, considering I am failing miserably at my summer TBR, which are all over 500 pages, and there's no way I'm gonna make it. Some sweet, sweet relief is very good. I think for Herkid, I'll probably be using this one for merfolk as part of my spooky creatures as well. The other prompt is to be determined. The 5th book I'm reading in August that I don't know what it's gonna be. It is a book for my Buzzwordathon challenge. The buzzword for the month of August is with, and I really can't decide what to read next. It's kind of going to depend on what kind of time I have and what kind of mood I'm in. So here are my options for books with the word with in the title. We have A Room with a View by E.M. Forrester. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larson. This has been on my TBR for the longest time. I would love to get to it, but it is kind of the chunkiest book on here. Off with Her Head by Eleanor Herman. This is a nonfiction about misogyny and history. Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake is a contemporary romance. A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher is a bit of a spooky book. The Night Ends with Fire by KX Song is a retelling of Mulan and is a fantasy book, so I'm not really sure what to read. I am leaning towards a shorter book, depending on how much time I have. I'm not sure, but maybe if you read any of these books, can you leave me comments down below and tell me which one I should read? I really cannot be sure. Now, I have some fun things happening this month. I am currently 2 days into a 9-day vacation. I am not going anywhere. I'm just staying in home and reading, so I'm hoping to catch up on some of my books, get some of these completed, play booktuber, get some videos out for you guys, maybe do a live stream. I was thinking maybe reading sprints. Would that be something you'd be into if I hosted reading sprints? I'm always looking for reading sprints and can never find ones that I vibe with. I do join Ashley Hart's Reading a lot of the time for her reading sprints. I don't know why I just click with that one so much, but I was thinking maybe that one. I know Debbie from Book and Bujo is going to be hosting a reading sprint on the 14th. Is that today? That's 3 days from now. I'm going to be joining that one since I have all the time in the world. So that might be fun. I've got a video coming up at the end of August for my fall TBR. I'll be playing Library Card. A fall board has been made, so it'll be a special edition of the game. I'm going to be doing a video for stealing someone's TBR for Herkid. I've got a lot of things to catch up on. I was thinking about doing like a very much late ranking my 2024 reads videos, but what would you think? Is that too late? Is it never too late? Tell me down below. My thoughts are a scrambled egg right now, but thank you for joining me. Like, subscribe, come back for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!